None of us remember this day, the shock, the drama of being born, greeting the world with a cry, a scream, clenched fists. We were warm, safe inside our mother's body, and everything we needed came through a cord into her belly. And then suddenly we were thrust into the cold, harsh world, naked and gasping for breath, bombarded by bright lights, loud noises. Welcome to this world. You know, our brains are wired to detect to detect danger. It's what they call primal anxiety, and it's actually something that keeps us alive at birth. But when our brains become flooded with adrenaline, we can't think clearly. And if you've ever experienced that, you know sometimes it's just hard to calm down. And that's why a baby needs that smooth, calming voice, that touch of a caregiver. We're going through the Sermon on the Mount, the reading this morning, same as the reading last week. And we will be hearing that message of Jesus several times in the coming weeks. But at the beginning of his sermon, his message from the hill, Jesus says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." If you go over to Luke's account, where Jesus gives a sermon, it's a little different. Luke chapter 6, verse 20, Jesus is quoted as saying, "Blessed are you who are poor." Blessed are the poor of spirit may seem to make more sense in our ears, as we've seen with Jen's presentation. It's hard to imagine for us what desperate poverty looks like. It's hard to understand how we could talk about being blessed by being poor. But maybe so much stuff can put us at a spiritual disadvantage. Maybe having so much stuff in our control gives us that delusion, you know what, I can manage this. I can manage my world because I can get what I want, and I get what I want because I work for it. And so I kind of pat myself on the back and thank myself for this world that I live in and everything that I have. And maybe we lose that sense of spiritual poverty, being poor in the spirit, that sense of dependence upon God, that total openness to God, who is really all that we have at the end of the day. And maybe it's true that people that have very little, maybe in some cases they do have a greater sense of that dependency upon God. But maybe being poor in spirit is all about letting go of that myth that dominates in our world. And that's the myth that the more that I have, the happier I will be. To be poor, simplest definition of being poor is that you lack something materially. But you know what? We can lack more than just material possessions. To be poor can also mean to lack something emotionally. And think about that, because I think it's true that most of us have places in our lives where something is lacking. We have each experienced loss. We have experienced loneliness, disappointments at times in our life. And eventually we will all get sick. We will all get aches and pains, and we all grow old and die unless the Lord comes before. And ultimately, none of us have enough. And so when we become aware of that, when we realize what we lack, our first instinct is to grab and to grasp, to hold on to whatever we think will make us feel safe and secure in this world. It's that instinct of closed hand anxiety that I'm talking about, of that not letting go. I want you to do something. I want you to close your hands now, and I want you to squeeze until your knuckles are tight. Okay? Just hold on to that. How's that feel? Kind of stiff? The old arthritis is coming back. Little tense? Uncomfortable? Okay? Don't let go until I say, okay? This is the posture of anxiety. This is the source of worry. This is the source of striving and greed that pervades our world. What makes you feel anxious? What makes you take a close-handed approach to life? I feel anxious when I think about the political and economic uncertainties in our world today. I often worry about all the things that I have on my to-do list. Can I get them done? I worry about having enough money to pay for the expenses when I'm too old to work. These are some of your anxieties too, right? Sometimes we worry about our children or our grandchildren. Will they thrive? Will they find good partners? Will they live the values that we taught them? Yeah. Our worries aren't always rational, but they feel very real to us. If you were to make a list of the top 5 things that you tend to worry about, what would they be? Just mentally think about them. What would they be? We don't all have the same worries, but I think there are some predictable patterns to the kinds of things that we probably worry about. Money, job, finances, physical health, mental health, relationships, the well-being of those we love, esteem, identity, significance, future difficulties that I may see down the road, maybe pain, uncertainty about what's happening. Why do you think that we tend to worry? In my experience, when I think about the times I really worry, you know what it usually is? I'm worrying because it is something that I can't control, right? Or it's something that I'm not sure what's going to happen. I can't predict how this is going to play out. And so I worry about it. What's going to... Or, you know what? We also worry because we care. I don't want to be all negative about worry, because we care. How can we not care about the people we love? How can we not care about the conditions in our world? So we care because we love. Worry and concern, I think we need to distinguish between the two. They're not the same. When I'm concerned about something, I like to think that if I'm concerned about something, that will motivate me to action. I will do something, or I'll try to do something about it. If I'm concerned about the weight that I've added to my body mass, maybe I will take some action to make new food and health choices, right? That's a concern. In contrast, worry is this heightened state of alarm, and it changes nothing. I just worry. And there's just this dreaded thought that just is kind of on a repeat loop, right? Just over and over again. I think Jesus touches on that when he says in the Sermon on the Mount a little later, who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? Worry wakes you up at night, doesn't it? Causes you to lose concentration. Distracts you when you're spending time with someone. Maybe you haven't heard anything I've said since I said the word worry this morning, because you're off on your loop. It zaps our energy. It paralyzes our action. Worry even can manifest itself physically, right? in the stomach, in the forehead, in the chest, the neck, the shoulders, the lower back. Worry. So in his teaching, the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, do not worry about your life. Paul echoes those words of Jesus, I think, when he writes, don't be anxious about anything. And these exhortations, they're not there to shame us. They're not there to make us feel bad because we worry. These instructions from Jesus, I want you to hear these instructions from Jesus as a gentle invitation. Okay, it's not Jesus, don't worry about your life. This is a gentle invitation from Jesus. Don't worry about your life. A gentle invitation to a better way. Because Jesus knew by experience that it's possible to live in open-handed trust. And he lived and he practiced the reality of God's care and presence. Do you remember when Jesus was in the boat with the disciples? They're out on the lake, the Sea of Galilee, and this violent storm comes up, right? In Mark chapter 4. And the disciples, they are scared for their lives. They think they're going to die. And what's Jesus doing? He's napping. He's asleep in the back of the boat. And Paul affirms this reality. Paul says nothing can separate us from what is most essential to our well-being. Nothing. Not disappointment, not sickness, not even death, Paul says, can separate us from the care and the presence of our Creator. You can open them now. How does that feel compared to the clenched fists for the last 5 minutes or so? Relaxed, peaceful, relieved. That's the posture of open-handed trust. You see, when faced with the inevitable lack in our lives, and we all lack something, and I'm not just talking materially, right? When we face the inevitable lack in our lives, we have a choice. We can follow our instincts and close our hands in white-knuckled anxiety, or we can open our hands in childlike trust. We can open our hands to receive the good. You know, it's almost a fatal attraction we have to bad news, right? We focus on the potential threats, everything that's going wrong in this world. And so often when that happens, we just miss the good. Fear and negativity are instinctual, but we can choose to be thankful. Give thanks in all circumstances, Paul says. And both ancient scripture and contemporary psychology affirm the power of gratitude. Take a moment right now and open your hands to receive the good. What are you appreciating about this day? What can you see today? What can you hear? What are you touching and tasting and smelling that makes you feel alive and connected to what is good? And when you look back over your life, what do you see as evidence that you are cared for and loved? Open your hands, receive the good. Open your hands to share what you have, because gratitude fuels that sense of abundance. I have so much to be thankful for. And out of that sense of abundance comes contentment. And out of that contentment comes generosity. Around the world, as we've been reminded of this morning, hundreds of millions of people lack access to basic nutrition, basic health services, clean water, public safety. Poverty is not a blessing. But when you know you cannot make it on your own, maybe it's easier to be open-handed. Maybe it's easier to live depending on others, to live interdependently. Paul quotes Jesus as saying, it's more blessed to give than to receive. I think that's a truth that's proven by both experience and research. It's more blessed to give than to receive. And you can cultivate not only a posture of receiving the good, but also a posture of open-handedness by asking yourself each day, what do I have that I can share with others? Maybe it's time. Maybe it's skills. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's something some possession you have. Maybe it's some food that you have that you can share with someone else, that someone else can use. Open your hands to share what you have. Blessed are the poor in spirit. And open your hands to let go of expectations. You know, we may tell ourselves, the day that I will truly be happy is the day when, fill in the blank. I can only be truly happy if I find a life partner, if I get my dream house, or if I get this particular job, or whatever. It's dangerous to make our sense of well-being contingent on a particular outcome. And many of our prayers are vocalizing our worries and attachments, and we say, God, give me this, give me this that I want. Sometimes people will even do a dare with God, right? Give me this or else, Lord. But what if you don't get what you want? Or what if you do? You may get what you want, only to discover that you're still unsatisfied. And well, I thought if I got that, but I really need this. If our life satisfaction is always dependent on getting what we want, I think we're in big trouble. Because ultimately, I'm sorry to break the news, but ultimately, we do not get what we want. We don't get all what we want. I won't say we don't ever get what, but we don't get all that we want. And you, this morning, can think of things in your life that you thought that you wanted, that maybe you still want, but you know you're not going to get it. Some goals, some dreams that you have will never come to pass. I was going to be a brain surgeon. Give thanks. Relationships that you hoped would heal reach an impasse. People you care about will pass away. We don't get all that we want, but we can open our hands to let go of those expectations, to share what we have, and to receive the good. See, this is all about Jesus inviting us. Blessed are the poor in spirit. He's inviting us into radical trust. Can we believe that nothing can separate us from what is most essential to our well-being? Can we believe that God's presence is with us through whatever difficulties we face? Independence makes us feel like we live in scarcity. It's all up to me. And I've got to make it on my own. But we didn't make ourselves. We don't have to make it on our own. And we can learn to trust in the abundant provision of a good creator, the one who created this world and at the end of each day looked at everything that he created and said, it was good. It was very good. It's an invitation to live with open hands, giving our sacred consent, speaking a radical yes to life, whatever may come. It's an invitation to trust that the one who made us will bring us through. So this morning, I invite you to open your hands, to live in gratitude, satisfaction, and generosity. Just share what you have with others and to see where it takes you. The Beatitudes invite us to move from that posture of close-handed anxiety to open-handed trust. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. May we own our poverty. May we confess that we lack, but celebrate the reality of our abundance and live with open hands and walk that way of trust.